Good morning traders and welcome back. Let's have a quick look through what's happening with our cryptocurrencies, and then I want to show you a potentially great trade coming up on the pound dollar. Alright, we've had some interesting news coming out of the Bitcoin where it's having some issues across in the Asian markets, so it has been depreciating significantly recently. In the bigger picture, this shortfall, yes, it definitely does show up on the charts, but it really, the people who invested down here are still laughing all the way to the bank. But in the short term, this is starting to look quite risky. We did just miss that 20,000 mark, and because of the news coming out of the East, I'm feeling a little bit less likely that we're going to hit that 20,000 mark, but I'll still take a 19,800 or wherever it was as being close enough to say that we did pretty well on that trade. So keep an eye out for Bitcoin. I must admit, I'm probably going to back off a little bit and see what's happening with the regulations coming up. I know some people are having some big issues because Bitcoin can be used to launder money. And whenever there's a possibility of international money laundering, regulators start stepping in and clamping down quite heavily. Now, I think it's very unlikely that they would look at a ban. I mean, there's just simply way too much money in Bitcoin for them to try and ban it. But we are going to see heavier than usual regulations coming in, and most likely quite soon. So we're going to keep an eye on the markets for this, but I'm personally going to back off a little bit on Bitcoin and have a look at the other ones. Now, we can see that because of the faith lost in Bitcoin recently overnight, Ethereum has taken a bit of a knock, but not nearly as much as what happened to the poor old Bitcoin. So Ethereum is still looking reasonably strong for another long position coming up. It's starting to follow how our typical forex markets work, where we no longer have, just these straight ups. We are now getting these ups and downs and peaks and whatnot. So perhaps this is entering a tradable area where we start getting enough information to actually start applying price action, and that will be very exciting for us. Then if we have a look at Litecoin, we can see that things are petering out on the 1 hour chart. If we have a look at the 4 hour chart again, you see how we've kind of hit this tradable zone, and things are sort of sitting in here. We're now getting information in this price level that we could use, which, yes, it can be annoying if you're in a Litecoin trade and you're no longer making these massive profits. But the good news is that the more information we get in these kind of areas means that we can start using price action and other forms of technical analysis to help us predict trades. So while it may feel a bit like a setback, there is definitely a strong positive there. Before we hop over to that pound dollar trade, I just want to show you something here. This is the US dollar South African rand. Now, the rand is actually doing reasonably well. It's nowhere as good as it used to be years and years ago, but the news coming out about Cyril Ramaphosa taking over leadership of the ANC, which means he is the most likely candidate for the next presidency, and he's very pro-business. I'm not going to go into a political discussion, and I don't really invite you to do it either. Politics are a very passionate thing that people believe in. It's very emotional, and I prefer to keep out of that completely. So I'm just going to show you how the markets are responding to this. Cyril Ramaphosa is very business orientated. He's very interested in getting more foreign capital into the country. He is also very interested in more local ownership of businesses. Whichever way you look at it, he is a money guy. He believes money talks, and the markets have been responding very nicely. The moment he was announced as the new lead of the ANC, we can see how this market just fell. Now, falling in this case is good for us because we have the US dollar on the left, the South African rand on the right, which means $1 US will now get you fewer rands than it would recently. So this is going to be interesting to watch as he makes more public appearances and lets us know a little bit about his future plans for the economy in the country. We should see the rand moving around quite nicely. And despite the high cost of trading the rand, this kind of event coming up can be extremely profitable. So I think we're going to be picking up some rand trades coming up. So I'll be keeping my eye on this and hopefully getting some information out here, and we can get some trades going probably in the new year. Okay, as one of the final potential entries of 2017, we've been looking at the pound dollar. Now, we've had this falling line all the way across here, and it looks like it's been hitting again recently, very, very recently, and it's actually on the line right now. We've also had a horizontal line, a nice line of support across there, giving us a triangle. Now triangles can be very nice because it helps you sort of predict the trading movement, and if there's still enough room within the triangle you can actually trade it, meaning if it were to fall from here all the way down to the bottom, you're looking at 90 pips, and that's enough room to place a few small trades. But we could also be looking at a breakout happening, and I'm sure many of you have seen just how amazing breakouts can be, so we get a little bit excited whenever we see a triangle. But what makes this event a little bit nicer is that, okay, we're on this line right here, right now, in this triangle, so we could have some movement coming out very soon. If you go to jpmarkets.co.za and you load up the economic calendar, you will see that the Bank of England Governor Carney is giving a speech. Now this is the guy who will come out and can actually tell us that there's been a change in the short-term interest rates. Whenever they change the short-term interest rates, we always see the markets move because it has a ripple effect to the rest of the entire economy. Are they trying to stimulate spending? Are they trying to get people to pick up more austerity measures in their own homes? What exactly are they trying to do with the British pound? So when he comes out and he starts speaking, if there is a change in the interest rate and it lines up perfectly with our technical analysis, then it might confirm that we're going to have a breakout or if it's going to return inside. If it looks like the news is pushing us down to continue the overall bearish movement that we're seeing here, then your first target would be at the support line. So you could sit and watch and enter the trade. As it comes down, you could close half of your trade and you would have cashed in, let's say it happens from about here, you could cash in about 70 odd pips, and on this currency pair that's really not a bad trade, especially on a smaller time frame like the 1 hour, and you'd be able to continue trading it short further down. If we have a look at the bigger picture, we can see that the next levels of resistance would be about at here. So there's a bit of playroom, and then there's not a huge amount until all the way down at this point, and that's like 160 odd pips away. So we definitely have enough room to play inside there to manage a trade and try and squeeze out more. If it turns out that the news is quite good and this breakout that's forming now is confirmed with that news event, then we also will have quite a nice way to go, because we can see that the next resistance point would be at about this level, and that is over 60 pips away. The next one is all the way up here, and that is nearly 120 pips away. So we have a fair bit of playroom in either direction. Now, because this news is coming out just this afternoon, I would not enter a trade now. I would personally rather sit and wait and watch what's happening here and then confirm what's happening with this news event coming out. So make sure you've got your news loaded up here, and at 3:15 we're going to have Bank of England Governor Carney is speaking, and then keep an eye on the actual markets here and see what's happening, and we could have a potentially very good trade that will run overnight, and then we'll see what's happening with it in the morning.